Hey everyone, it's Paige of verypaige.com. Today we're going to be sewing Simplicity 8458, and we're also going to be sewing it for under $10. So how we're going to sew this for under $10 is we're going to do a couple things. We're going to reuse fabric. I'm going to use a sheet that I purchased from my local thrift store. It was $1.99. I'm also going to omit the interfacing. You don't really need it. It's nice to have. You don't really need it. You can totally get away with not having it. It's just nicer if you do. I'm also going to be only doing the same finishing that I could do without my serger. So I think I'm just gonna pink the seams. That's also a super vintage way to do things. And I'm going to be using a vintage thrifted zipper. Now I say thrifted, but it was really given to me by a friend's mother who I luck out and her daughter doesn't sew. So I got all the hand-me-downs. So I have a huge box of zippers. In fact, let me go grab some for you. This box, super simple sew. I'll show you the fitting issues I had with it. I'm a skosh outside of the size range of the largest size of this pattern, so we kind of had to make things work. Let's get started on sewing this pattern up. So I made a muslin, and for muslins that are full skirts, you kind of only have to make the hip area and stuff that's gonna sit on you. You can see that technically it fits if I didn't have to zip it up maybe, but it's really snug and it's not super flattering in my opinion. So I'm about an inch too wide for this pattern. So the way that I went about altering the pattern to fit me better was, since the front and back seams were straight and on the grain, I just shifted the pattern piece about 1/4 of an inch on the front and the back pieces, which when you add those all up, it makes an inch. So you can kind of see on the right side of the pattern here how I just shifted it in 1/4 of an inch. The only other pattern piece that I altered for this, and the only other pattern piece that I really used, was the waistband. And since the waistband piece is literally just a straight rectangle, it has no contours at all, I just cut an extra long straight rectangle piece, and when I attached it to the skirt pieces once they were sewn up, I just trimmed off the excess. This is a really easy pattern to adjust, and if you can do any kind of math at all, you should be able to do it. Here's my vintage zipper. Yes, it is green. Yes, it is the wrong color, but we're sewing cheaply and we're working with what we have. I also forgot to mention that I bought the pattern on sale, so that's also how I saved some money. I think it came in to total for all my supplies, minus like my machine and my sewing needles, to about $6 or $7. So if you're just learning to sew and you don't want to invest money, or if you just want a good practice piece like I'm using this for, you don't have to spend a lot of money. I simply am using this as kind of a wearable muslin. I have a really beautiful homespun that I'm looking to make this out of, and I don't want to waste the fabric without making sure that the fit is spot on. So I'm applying my invisible zipper. I use a regular zipper foot to apply invisible zippers, and I just try to get as close as I can to the zipper teeth to make sure that, you know, it folds nicely. I don't think that the plastic invisible zipper foots are any good, and your needle goes through them if you catch the wrong edge of it, and it's just super not worth the whole hassle. Just use your regular zipper foot. It's sturdy, it's made for it, it can do it. But you just want to make sure that you're putting your second zipper side in the right way. Refer to the directions on the zipper package. I did this 3 times, which I won't show you because I'm a little bit dyslexic and I have trouble with wrong side, right side. You might also see in the video that I tend to label the fronts and backs of my pieces, and I tend to label pieces that are similar with a water-soluble marker. So you might see some things marked front and back. It just helps me. It's little tricks that you get used to. The more you sew, you find out the things that you need. So my 3rd attempt, I finally installed the zipper right. Great job. I was very frustrated the whole day. When I finished the seam for the zipper, I know people do invisible zippers a bunch of different ways. I start from the bottom of my pattern piece using my zipper foot, and basically I sew until I hit the point in which I stitched the zipper down on the top. And so you get really close. You don't have to get right on there, but with the zipper foot, you can get as close as you're gonna get with a machine. it's just an easy way to finish it. For this, I'm also not finishing the seams as French seams, which I know, shocker, but I decided to pink my seams since it is a vintage pattern. It just was easier, and since I'm not really intending for this to be my final garment, I didn't take the extra time to do it, although I did take the extra time to hand stitch a bunch of stuff. But yeah, here you can see it's actually fitting much better. There's a little bubble above my belly button that I don't know what that's from. I think the pattern shipped on the bias. It's an old sheet. Not a whole lot can be done about that. But, you know, after pressing, it doesn't look quite as bad. I thought about adding the pocket here, and then I decided I really didn't like it. Here I'm showing you my super cute scalloped pinking shears that I got on Amazon, and I'm just pinking the seams and then I'm pressing them. I like the scallop pinking shears because I can kind of fake an 18th century scalloped trim with them. And I don't know, they're just cuter than the triangle zigzag ones. I don't know if it affects the pinking at all, but I seem to have okay luck with it. I'm also starting to use these little finger guards for pressing because I like to get real close in there. You guys all know that I love pressing really, really hot and with a lot of steam, and I was just sick of burning my fingers. So I really recommend them. They're Clover. They were super awesome. Here I am attaching the super straight rectangular waistband piece to the skirt. I'm using my Wonder Clips because, as I've told you guys before, I have a bad habit of misplacing pins. And instead of misplacing pins, I'd rather misplace a Wonder Clip because I don't want my dog eating any more pins or needles. So if it's an edge piece and I can use the Wonder Clips, I do. And so you'll see how much longer I cut that piece, and I'm just trimming it down. It's just that easy. And then pin it. And then what I'll do is I will stitch the waistband to the skirts right sides together so that I can turn it out and encase that seam eventually. But yeah, just stitch to the waistband. It's a straight seam. It shouldn't be hard. Take your time. All right, and now you're gonna wanna press the top edge and that front edge of the waistband under. Again, loving these little, you know, finger guards because I have burnt the hell out of myself on several occasions. So I'm pressing it down, and you're gonna press it down, and then you're gonna fold the waistband in half once you reach the edge. If you wanted to be extra fancy, you could stitch around that overlapping portion right sides together so you could just turn it in. Like I said, I'm not super concerned about that for this project. This is kind of like my final wearable muslin piece. So I'm actually just going to stitch that down with hand stitching. I'm, again, not super worried about it. But yeah, press it really well. Pressing makes all the difference, you guys. I cannot stress that enough. Here I am just doing a little handwork. I really enjoyed hand stitching. In fact, I hand stitched a lot more on this project than I normally would, and I know it doesn't make for very compelling YouTube footage, but this is how I did it. And it's a little janky right there. I should have just stitched it right sides together and turned it out, but like I said, on the next go around, which I don't think I'm gonna film a sew with me video because you guys have already watched me sew a version of this. If you really want me to film the next final version of this in a sew with me video, let me know. I'd be more than happy to. So then what I'm doing here is I am stitching the waistband down using a catch stitch, which is my favorite stitch, and I use it all the time to do hems and waistbands. And basically you're gonna see that the folded waistband, that folded edge that you folded under that I'm stitching right now, is basically on the original stitching line. And if you just stick to that stitching line and catch stitch like to there, you're not gonna have a whole lot showing on the other side. My catch stitch is pretty small, and most of the time it's pretty invisible. I do it a lot. It takes practice, it takes time. And here you can kind of see what I'm doing. This is my catch stitch. You can do it bigger. It's not the end of the world. It just depends on what you want to do. If you want to spend the time going very small and very minute, you know. I'm taking the pins out and I'm putting them on my little magnetic pin holder that I got in the last sewing haul that I had, and I love it when I'm doing hand sewing stuff or when I'm using pins at all because it makes me double sure that I'm not gonna have another pet issue with my sharp sewing instruments. But you can kind of see this is regular speed. This is how long it takes me. It took me, you know, an hour or so to do the waistband, and then when I catch stitched the hem, it took forever. I had to split it up and do a couple of different sessions. You're gonna wanna let your dress hang either on your dress form or on a hanger at least 24 hours because there is some bias in the skirt. And if you're not letting it hang, it's going to be uneven when you hem it. So just take the extra time. And I also shortened it a great deal. It is a vintage pattern. It was made to be a longer skirt. I tried it on and I didn't think it was as flattering as if it just hit me at the knee. But maybe I'm just not used to the skirt length. It's definitely more of a midi skirt. So just keep that in mind when you're making it. That's the only downside to making a half muslin for skirts is you don't really see where it hits you. But you can always hem stuff shorter. That's never an issue. This is just an A-line skirt. You're not gonna miss any detail by hemming it shorter. And then you're simply going to press the hem up twice and use lots of steam. Take your time. Sometimes hems can be a little tricky. They'll want to bunch up on you. Just use a real hot iron, lots of steam. Well, I mean, depending on your fabric, if you have a beautiful polyester, don't use a high heat. It will melt. But this is a cotton sheet. It's made to get rough and tumble. And again, I'm just using my wonder clips and pinning it up. And then I'm going to hand catch stitch it. And I actually did a time lapse for the catch stitch. So that should give you an idea of like how long I was doing it. It took me, maybe 3-4 sessions of like 45 minutes. And towards the end, my stitches got a little bit thicker, but we won't tell my grandma. She doesn't have to look at the hem, So here I am, time lapsing it, wearing my pajamas as always. I really should get dressed up for videos, but I can't bring myself to do it. I'm a terrible YouTuber. You can see my terrible posture here as well, really hunched over on my couch, probably watching Love Actually because I'm all about Christmas right now. And then you're gonna sew on your closures. You can use like a waistband hook. I use snaps just because they're vintage and cheap. And you can get a pack of like 20 for like $2 on sale at Joann's. I put 2 in, one at the very edge and one at the very edge of the inside flap just to kind of make sure that it was, secure. Also, snaps are really easy to install and I don't feel like people use them enough anymore. But, you just kind of mark where it goes, go ahead and put it in, and in a minute you will see the finished garment. And I'm pretty happy with it. It's definitely a very wearable muslin, but I cannot wait to make it out of my more winter appropriate fabric.
So that's how you sew very cheaply. You repurpose materials, you buy your patterns on sale. You can omit 1 or 2 things if you really are trying to save money. Next time I sew this, I probably won't omit the interfacing just because it makes a big difference, more so than I gave it credit for. I probably will put interfacing in the next waistband just because the material is a little bit heavier, and I can already tell that just because I like the waistband a little bit tighter that I don't want it to stretch over time. I also will eliminate the center front seam. If you can kind of see right here, there's that center front seam. And when I cut it on the fold and then cut it up the crease of the fold. So I will just cut it on the fold next time. You can kind of see right here, there's a little bit of puckering, and I think it shifted a little bit when I sewed it, but it wouldn't be nearly that bad if I put interfacing in and if there was no center front seam.
Thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, comment. I love your comments. I will respond to you. Let me know if you want to see more videos like this. Let me know what kind of content you'd like to see. Just have like an awesome day and get to sewing, and let's do it super cheaply for once. All right, bye.